Welcome to The Explainer, brought to you by Byte Goose AI. Today, we are diving deep into the technology that's teaching AI not just to talk, but, well, to actually think. So, to really get what's going on, we have to start with the fundamental challenge that AI developers are up against right now, making that huge leap from just talking to genuinely thinking. I mean, we're all pretty familiar with large language models, right? The LLMs. They are amazing conversationalists, no doubt. But what happens when you ask them to do something really hard, like solve a complex math problem or write some really intricate code? A lot of the time, they kind of struggle. And that right there, that's the gap between being a helpful assistant that sounds right and being a true problem solver that is right. This is the big critical shift from LLMs to what the field is now starting to call large reasoning models, or LRMs. So how do we build that reasoning muscle? Well, the answer lies in this really powerful training technique called reinforcement learning, or RL. It's basically a way to incentivize the act of reasoning itself. Think of it like a digital brain gem. The AI, what we call the agent, tries to solve a problem in an environment. When it takes a step, an action, it gets feedback. We call that a reward. And it does this over and over and over, learning which actions lead to the biggest reward at the end. This whole process really just boils down to a three-part recipe. First, you need a super clear way to define what success even looks like. That's your reward design. Next, you need a method for the AI to actually learn from those rewards. That's policy optimization. And finally, you need a smart way for the AI to practice. That's its sampling strategy.
Okay, let's start with that first ingredient, which is arguably the most important one, the reward. Because the real breakthrough here isn't just that we're using RL, it's how we're defining success for the AI in the first place.
You see, for years, AI training really relied on humans. It was called reinforcement learning from human feedback, or RLHF. A person would literally look at an AI's answer and say, yep, this one's better. But this new trend, reinforcement learning from verifiable rewards, or RLVR, well, it's changing absolutely everything. And the difference is just stark. Human feedback is slow, it's expensive, and it's totally subjective. But with RLVR, a computer can check the answer itself. It's objective. I mean, the code either runs or it doesn't. It's automatic, and it's infinitely scalable. And get this, verifiable rewards are just one piece of this puzzle. Researchers are now exploring a whole spectrum of automated feedback, from having AIs grade each other's work to giving feedback at every single step of the reasoning process. The goal is always the same: make the learning process faster, smarter, and way more scalable. Okay, so now that we have a reward, how does the model actually learn from it? Well, that's where policy optimization comes in. The goal here, and you can see the math for it on the slide, is conceptually pretty simple. You just keep tweaking the model's strategy, or its policy, until it consistently finds the path that leads to the biggest possible reward, over millions and millions of tries. Now, to get there, researchers are using two main approaches. You've got the older method, which is critic-based, and then there's this newer, more streamlined approach that is critic-free. So the classic approach is called PPO. It's a little complex, but the main idea is you use a second AI, a critic, to basically act as a coach. It guides the main model on every single step it takes. It's effective, for sure, but it means you're training two really complex models at the same time. But this newer, more streamlined approach is critic-free. So instead of a critic AI, the model just generates a whole batch of different answers to a problem. It then gets a reward for the correct ones and learns by comparing its successful attempts to the average of the whole group. Super clever. And you know, this critic-free method is a huge step forward. It's way simpler, it needs less computation, and it avoids a huge pitfall called reward hacking, where the AI learns to just trick a flawed critic instead of actually solving the problem. For tasks with clear right or wrong answers, it's just a more direct and scalable way to get to success. All right, on to the final ingredient in our recipe, the sampling strategy. Because if you're going to practice millions of problems, you better be practicing smart. So instead of just feeding the model a bunch of random problems, dynamic sampling focuses the compute budget. The system actually learns to identify problems that are not too easy, but not too hard either. It keeps the model right in that sweet spot of learning, where it's challenged but not totally overwhelmed. Other methods are using what's called structured sampling,
which is kind of like a tree search. So instead of generating one single linear chain of thought, the model explores multiple branching reasoning paths all at once. This lets it compare different strategies and learn a whole lot more from just a single problem. So, what happens when you combine these verifiable rewards, this efficient policy optimization, and smart sampling at a massive, massive scale? Well, you get a revolution in AI capabilities.
And you can see the incredible results right on this timeline. I mean, in just the last year, we have seen an explosion of powerful new models trained with these very techniques. Pioneers like OpenAI's O1 and DeepSeek's R1 proved this method works, and they paved the way for the incredible systems we're seeing today.
And this progress, it isn't just academic. These models are now tackling complex, real-world challenges, writing sophisticated software, acting as autonomous agents that can use tools, controlling robots, and even helping out with medical discovery and multimodal reasoning. And this really brings us back to the most important insight of all. We aren't teaching the AI to memorize answers. By giving it a clear goal and an objective reward for the outcome, we're letting it discover the complex, multi-step process all on its own. And that leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. If a simple, scalable reward signal is the key that unlocked machine reasoning, what other complex abilities, creativity, planning, maybe even something like consciousness, are just waiting for the right reward to be unlocked?